Good evening, dear friends. In today's session, we'll deal with the banking system in India and then the various banks which are in operation in general and the commercial banks in particular. Basically, the classification of banks is concerned. The RBI is called the apex banking institution and it is the central bank and monetary authority of the country. Then friends, there are 5 apex banking institutions in the country. One is the Small Industries Development Bank of India, SIDBI. The next one is the NABARD, the Bank for Agricultural Development, Rural and Agricultural Development. Then the Exim Bank, then the Industrial Reconstruction Bank of India, then the National Housing Bank. Then friends, there are different banking institutions down the hierarchy. Basically, there are commercial banks, regional rural banks, and cooperative banks. They are divided into 3 segments. The commercial banks again are divided into public sector and private sector. In the private sector, there are Indian and foreign banks. In the public sector, there is State Bank of India Group, and then followed by the SBI and subsidiaries and subsidiary companies also. Under the SBI, there are a number of companies like housing finance, insurance, etc. Then the nationalized banks, the other segment other than SBI and the subsidiaries thereon. This aspect I have already covered in my earlier discussion. Then friends, there is another category called the development banks. They are divided into industrial development banks and land development banks. The industrial development banks happen to be at all India level, the Industrial Finance Corporation of India and the Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. And at the state level, it is the state financial corporations and then state industrial development corporations. Now the land developments are concerned, they're at state level and then at grassroots level. So you call it as land development banks, then at the grassroots level, primary land development banks. Then with regard to investment institutions, you find the LIC, the General Insurance Corporation and the UTI. Apart from that, the credit guarantee institutions are concerned, the Export Credit Guarantee Corporation. Then on the monetary market, you find the Finance House of India Limited. Monetary markets are concerned. With this background, in fact, we had to study the functions of various banks in the country. Here I take them as basically commercial, industrial, cooperative and other kinds. So far the commercial banks are concerned, I am dealing with banking system in general before we go into the depth of the subject matter. The very significant function of banking system is to basically accept deposits from the public and also grant loans, which can be termed as creation of credit. A commercial bank is taken as a bank which provides various services along with providing the necessary grassroots level services to public like acceptance of deposits, granting of various loans and offering various products relating to investment opportunities. Then the commercial banks could be taken in the present day scenario, a bank by itself, or could be a division of a mighty banking institution, as the case may be. And it would provide multifarious services to the public. It could be to the various organizations, to the individuals, and it could also provide services to the governments. Friends, these commercial banks are established in India in both private and public sector. And these commercial banks are considered to be very ancient, and they have very wider area of business and multiple branches, and they carry a very high public confidence. And then, in fact, in the present globalization situation, they carry, as I told you, multifarious functions. Then that includes agriculture, industrial funding, agricultural funding, merchant banking, regular banking, and business also. Then, friends, what is the basic role or what are the functions of these particular commercial banks? Basically, the commercial banks take up the basic banking activities only. They don't undertake capital market activities. Of course, slowly they are expanding. But basically, capital market activities are carried by the investment banks. In Indian scenario, commercial banks carry functions like deposits and funding, financing, and slowly they are now opening vistas for capital market activities also. Then, friends, the history is concerned, several commercial banks were established as corporate entities by private individuals and organizations, and later on the state took control of some of them, like nationalization took place. The state started conducting banking operations by establishing state-owned banks like the State Bank of India and its subsidiaries. And then, friends, today the banking activities are ever expanding and they are globalized, and the commercial banks, in fact, discharge the functions like, for example, acceptance of deposits, various kinds of deposits being taken, operation in the banks, providing different opportunities, and then products like loans, advances, personal loans, professional loans, agricultural, industrial loans, housing, educational, etc. They also provide services like collecting and clearing of checks, dividend warrants, and personal services like payment of rents, etc. And providing bank drafts, bankers' checks, foreign exchange services, acting as agents, trustees, taking up managerial services like cash management, equity financing, then providing utility services like merchant banking, safe deposit lockers, issuing letters of credit, bank guarantees, taking up underwriting activities, then interfinancial institutions, a relationship being maintained, and credit and debit cards, and so on and so forth. Now, friends, we have to, in that way, examine the structure of the commercial banks, how they are all structured. They are run, structured means how they are run. They are run both by the state and central governments. And then they are both in private and public sector. And then the commercial banks today play a very pivotal role. Debit card system, credit card system, with the COVID, everything is now online. So it has risen to the occasion and then provided the necessary impetus. Well, so that economy is from another way protected by the contribution of these banks, commercial banks. Then, friends, we look at the industrial banks. They are technically called Morris banks in foreign countries, like the Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India, Industrial Development Bank of India, Industrial Finance Corporation of India, Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India, Industrial Investment Bank of India Limited. They are all the industrial banks which contribute for the industrial growth, and their role is basically on providing planning for promoting and developing industries, providing finance facilities, guaranteeing deferred payment due to industrial concerns and for loans raised by them, discounting of bills, guaranteeing of loans raised in foreign currency, providing rehabilitation of sick industrial units, and then equipment financing, equipment leasing, equipment procurement, equipment credit, installment credit, suppliers credit, and buyers credit. These are all the things which are taken up by these industrial banks. Now, friends, I take you to the cooperative sector. The concept of cooperative banks was promoted during the development of cooperative movement in this country, and then the corporate entities must be, in fact, the banks are concerned, their corporate entities must be registered either under the Companies Act or under the State Cooperative Societies Act, the Central Cooperative Societies Act, which is called Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act 2002. And then the prominent functions of cooperative banks are concerned. They function in a restricted arena as per the statute, and they are organizing at the state level, and then state, central, district cooperative banks they are called, and they are also working at district level and primary credit societies nomenclated at village level. And then they are governed by few sections of Banking Regulation Act, but now under 2020 amendment they are being covered very widely, and the 2020 amendments you are supposed to familiarize yourself. There have been several concessions granted by the Reserve Bank of India in this regard. Then, friends, the next aspect is the land development banks, that is for providing credit facilities to the agricultural sector. This type of cooperative banks, in fact, a wing of that, have been developed as land development banks, and they are at taluk level also, district level also. And then, in fact, they float debentures and they are all subscribed by the state and central government, the LIC commercial banks. And then there is a policy of mutual support. Then, friends, I will come to the last part of our discussion, that is the development bank, because I am giving you a bird's eye view of the different types of banks which are run in the country in different segments and sectors. That is where these different sectors have been taken into account. The development banks, now the last part is the development banks, which are called financial institutions, whose main objective is to provide specialized financial assistance for the business and agriculture sectors. And then business means both trade, commerce, and industry. These banks, friends, provide finance to both private and public sector. And then this development banking actually was introduced in the world after the Second World War. And the starting point in 1948 in country with Small Industries Development Bank of India, and then other Industrial Finance Corporation, Industrial Development Bank of India, and so on and so forth. The basic functions happen to be providing any kind of financial assistance, long-term, medium-term, short-term loans being offered, taking up promotional activities of business, acting as underwriters, encouraging new and small entrepreneurs to function with a motive to serve public interest more than making of profits. So, friends, these are all the banks which play a very pivotal role in Indian economy, And then at the regional, global level, banks like Asian Development Bank also playing a very pivotal role for the development, economic development and progress of the, in fact, that particular country and then that country, a particular country's economy. Then friends, the banking system is taken into different other segments also, which is there is another branch called retail banking. Retail banking means providing banking services to individual customers, also called retail customers directly, not only industries and agricultural sectors. That is what we have been regularly watching and then working and then we have been subject to. This type of banking is also referred to as consumer banking or personal banking, and it has become a very good, in fact, important subject matter today. And then institutions like LIC, UTI, General Insurance Corporation of India, Discount and Finance House of India Limited, and so, they are providing further cushion for smooth functioning of, in fact, the banks and the banking system in this country. And with this background, I think we conclude our discussion on the banks and then the various banking institutions nomenclated and the functions thereon. So friends, with this, the basic issues under Unit 1 has been completed. We are now proceeding to Unit 2 very fast, that is the customer and banker relationship. This would be starting off from next session, and then as soon as possible we will try to conclude it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. See you.